So with this video, I want to revisit this PowerPoint presentation that we talked about, or that I showed you in Module 2. We are now focusing on our resume designs. So let me get this playing here. And I really want now to focus on the design of your resume, specifically the typography and the visual organization of your information on your resumes, and using some of those skills that you've learned in design literacy when you learned about hierarchy, specifically typographic hierarchy, and using typography tools to your advantage when you're creating a type-heavy document like your resume will be. So I just want to start by showing you on the left-hand side here with the big red X over it. This is potentially what your resumes currently look like, because all you've done up until this point is gathered the information, which is a big step. Getting your information correct, making sure that it sounds good, everything is there and updated with all of your skills and your work experience and any potential educational awards that you've won, or contests that you've entered, or perhaps gallery shows that you have entered. So gathering your information is step number one, and it is a time-consuming process. Trust me, I've done it several times, so it's not an easy thing to do. So being at this left-hand side, being at this stage is a great place. But we want to now move out of the Microsoft Word style of resumes that other people have. We are designers, we have design training, and we want to present ourselves in a way that shows our skills as far as typography and layout go. So one way to do that is to make a first impression by having a really great looking resume. So if you look at this other side on the right side, it's very simple still. You don't have to go crazy, show every kind of thing that you can do design-wise, but organizing your information is extremely important, and it's up to you how you organize that information. There's no right or wrong way. Most of the examples that I will show you are one-page resumes. I really think that's a strong way to go. It takes some time to organize your information and cull your information down so that it fits on one page. Now this particular example, it's still a little bit crowded, I understand, but it's just to show you really, you don't want to present yourself like you would on the left-hand side. You really want to make your resume stand out a little bit more, like something on the right-hand side. Okay, so let me go down and I'm going to show you a couple of examples. I showed you this earlier in the semester. This is a very simple looking resume. I like it so much better than the one here on the right hand side with the green check mark, because this one seems a bit crowded to me, and this one has a lot of nice blank space. She's used some color fields to bring some interest, because think about your resume. You want this to be something that if it's printed on someone's desk, it's going to kind of leap off of the desk and really grab your visual attention. And she's used some really good tools here, like for instance some rule lines separating the company names that she has worked for. Now of course this is all blurry and fake text. It's okay that we can't really read all of this. If you notice at the bottom, and you'll notice this if you do a search for graphic designer resumes or web designer resumes or whatever type of resume you're looking for as far as a designer goes, you're going to notice a lot of them have a software section or something like that that shows their skills, and they rate their skills Now I know that that's a useful thing to do, and almost everyone does it. I don't know personally if it makes sense to say I'm way better at Photoshop and I'm not very good at, let's say, Illustrator. I don't know that it makes sense for a designer to limit their skill set. However, where it can be useful is, for instance, let's say you're applying for a web design position specifically, you would definitely want to highlight the fact that you know, let's say Dreamweaver or Atom or HTML and CSS. You'd really want to highlight those skills that you have. So think about it. Another thing that uh, she's done here, she has used very simple typography with some visual hierarchy. So the largest thing, the most important thing, is her name. And then she's used some subheads like the About Me and the Contact and Work Experience and Education. All of those are subheads. And then there's a slightly smaller subhead for languages underneath that. And then an even smaller subhead, uh, headline, smaller subhead for the company names, university names of where she's gone to school, and then even smaller than that. She's created a system. Every single paragraph follows that same hierarchy of information, the levels of information, bigger to smaller. And that's what I want to see you do. Slightly mixing fonts is fine if you want to do that, but don't go crazy. I would suggest just using one font family if it were me creating a resume, one font family with use of bold, italics perhaps, semi-bold, different levels of weights of your typography will be very useful in something like this resume project. Again, you can see the visual hierarchy here. It's not the greatest example again, but you can definitely see at a glance that there are different sections. Your eye just doesn't have to swim all over the page. These typographic hierarchy sections are really helping to divide the information up so that it doesn't look like a like a like a page out of a novel. You want it to look um, as if the information has been organized and broken down into different categories specifically. Here's another example. This is a lot more fun of an example. There's a playful illustration in the background. There are some infographics, some shapes that he's using. Still very simple, but also as much fun as this is to look at, more interesting probably, some may say, it's still got some typographic hierarchical changes or sections. So software and languages, those are very large and prominent. Again, his name is the most prominent thing as far as the type is concerned. And then the levels of type importance are get smaller and smaller. Now, one thing I don't like about this, if I were grading this or offering my suggestions, I definitely don't like that all of the typography shown here is in all caps. All caps makes it very hard to read, so I would restrict the use of all capital letters to just subheads and possibly your name, but definitely don't choose a font that only gives you the use of all capital letters for a resume because it's just going to be so much harder for the viewer to read that. So we want to make sure that it's still legible. Here's an example. Again, this is just lorem ipsum fake type, but you can see how you can really create good visual hierarchy and a typographic system. So he's used different sizes of the font. He's used all caps in his subhead sections. But then in his body copy and some of the smaller paragraphs, he's used lowercase, just normal body text. So, really look at What is the most important information? How do I want to organize my sections? Let me see if I've got any other things here. Here's another one showing fake text again, but again shows organization of the information. What's more important? What do you want to call out on the sidebar to the left? What do you want to have on the other side? So really push yourselves to try to create a one-page resume. At first, I've found that it's much easier for most students because you may not have as much work experience to list, um, but it becomes difficult, as you move forward in your careers to